I'm getting so tired. I'm getting so.
Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Bacon. Welcome to the show, y'all. Look here. Situations like this, it happens all the time, right? People turn on each other for different reasons. This issue here has to do with family loyalty. You either go up together or you come down together. That's just what it is, right? Most people, I want y'all to understand this, because y'all really act up thinking you about this life and you want to be a part of this lifestyle. Most people are not going to go to jail for you. Now, you can use all of the street code, street lingo, or whatever you want to use to try to embarrass them, make them feel this way or that way. But at the end of the day, listen to me. You can sit there and talk all that mess you want to. Ask yourself, with the opportunity presented to you, would you go to prison or would you say something? Most of y'all, you know what you'll do. You'll say something. And you'll say it hoping that don't nobody find out, because nobody will find out if they force them to take a plea. Now, follow the story. Check me out now. This is going to get good. So, Miss Lynn, that's their mother. She always had a ace in the hole, always. But she thought it was going to be her that got caught up. And she knew she had to protect Granny. But she got to do a little alterating to the story so that it gets put on Jarvis. You understand what I'm saying? Listen to me. This is how this is going to play out. Check this out. So she calls the house, and she's talking to Pooky's girl, and she tells Pooky's girl that she need to get the pharmacist on the phone. So she calls the pharmacist. She said, listen, I'm going to send somebody by that's going to tell you something. You're not going to like what you're going to hear, but you need to do everything that they say do. He had been knowing Miss Lynn for a long time. They made a lot of money together, done a lot of things together, and he knew that he could trust her. And whatever was going to be said, it might change his life forever, but it was something that he better do. So Miss Lynn had already discussed with Pooky's girl what it is she needs to say to the pharmacist. So she goes over to see the pharmacist, right? And Pooky's girlfriend tells the pharmacist, she said, look, the gig is up. It's over. We have to shut everything down. But we got a problem with Jarvis. And the problem is that Jarvis is working with the police. He done told him he got his brother Pooky locked up. But what we need you to do, when the time comes, you don't volunteer this, but when the time comes, you need to say that Jarvis, not Pooky, is the one that you deal with. Period. Point blank. Never mention anybody else's name. And tell them that you were only doing this because you knew the grandmother and she was infirm with dementia, but she needed her meds. The pharmacist looks at him and he sits down. He's an older guy. And he sits down, very, very wealthy. He says, well, I knew this day was coming one day. And we've done well. He said, if that's what she wants me to do, I'll do it. He says, but when is this going to happen? Pooky's girlfriend looks at him and said, we don't know. But right now, they got Pooky in jail and we're finna try to make his bond in the next couple of days, and then I think that things will start rolling. But whenever it happens, remember the story. He said, I got you. I got you. So they get Pooky out of on bond in a couple of days. And she tells Pooky everything that his mother told him to say. Now, Jarvis is still coming around the house. Pooky wants to do something to him, but he knows the plot is unfolding, so he doesn't really have to put hands on him. He ain't got to do nothing. You got to let this thing play out. You got to have patience in this game, y'all. If you ain't got patience, you got trouble. So Jarvis, he playing his role. He said, if you listening to your gal tell you all these stories, she lying to you, bro. She ain't telling you the truth. You know what I'm saying? They got me hemmed up too. So Pooky playing with it a little bit. He said, listen, how in the world were you able to get out so fast? He said, I had me a bondsman on standby. Now Pooky's girl, she's getting a little mad. She know that Pooky's playing with him, but she's like, you never even got put in handcuffs. You never even got put in handcuffs when they took you out. They took the handcuffs off at the car, put you in the car, and let you go. She said they only do that for CIs. He said, I'm not a CI. Got mad and tried to rush it. Pooky jumped up, got in the middle of him. I said, hold up. We're not going to worry about that. Pooky said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to fight it, man. They ain't got no proof. I'm going to fight it. Pooky said, that's what we're going to do together. We're going to fight it. You got your own lawyer, you say? I got mine. But we're going to fight it. He said, that's what's up. Jarvis leaves. She looks at it. Pooky girlfriend, look at him. She said, why did you do that? He told her, he said, look, he don't need to know what we're doing. We already know what he's doing. We don't tip our hand. If you tip your hand, you give people the opportunity to prepare for what's coming. When whatever happens to him, he ain't going to see it coming. Period. So, a person with dementia, Alzheimer's, they come and go. You know what I'm saying? That's an unfortunate thing about the disease. So, when their grandmother was in one of her lucid states, Pooky and his girlfriend, they talked to her and they tried to assure her that everything was going to be fine and that she needed to trust them. And they were going to be fine, they were going to go away together, and they were never going to be separated from each other again. But she told him, she said, my house. I don't want to leave my house. This is the only thing that she's familiar with consistently is her house. The house that her husband bought for her. This is where she spent her whole life. She didn't want to leave it. And Pooky told her, he said, then we won't leave. We'll stay here. And that made her laugh and all this. And then, just like that, she was back to not knowing where she was at. So Pooky's girlfriend said, look, why don't we create her a room at the new house? Because they had already bought a house on the other side of town in a nice area. I mean nice, exclusive area. You know what I mean? And she wanted to make sure that grandmother was still comfortable. So she said, why don't we just redesign her room to look exactly like this room? And she won't know. Pooky said, you don't think she'll be able to tell the difference? And if she does tell the difference, we just come back here. But let's give it a shot. So they got the interior decorators to come over there and look at the house, redesign the room at their house to look exactly like their grandmother's room. Because she never came out of the room. It's where she ate, slept, and bathed. That's it. That's all they needed to make that space work. They got that done. The DEA comes. They have a court appearance. And the DEA, they asked for some more time to investigate. They had some people they had to go talk to. They hadn't gone to talk to the pharmacist yet, but they knew that the pharmacist had to be involved one way or the other. So they eventually bumped down on it. And when they bumped down on it, they told him. They told him that they had him. He knew that they didn't. Now, yeah, could they put him in jail for filling that script when the grandmother's not lucid? Yeah, maybe. But he had all the records to show that she had passed every piss test. You understand what I'm saying? All the things that he was required by law to do. Now, what she did with the pills after he gave them to her, that was her business. He had nothing to do with that. So they asked him, they said, so who was bringing the grandmother in? And he told them, Jarvis. Now, at this time, it wasn't required for them to have surveillance cameras in these pharmacies and stuff like they do these days, right? So they had to rely on his word, strictly his word. So they said, well, we may need you to testify to that. So now the DEA agents, they were leaving, they were confused. They were looking at it like, wait a minute. The person that told us what was going on is the person that keeps popping up as the primary suspect, Yeah, maybe his brother was involved because it was his brother, but it's his name that keeps popping up. It's him the one that lied about dementia. It's him that have been told that he's the one that's running this operation. And at first it was him. They went together, but he was the alpha at one time until he got hooked on the drugs. He was the alpha. So they started to question him a little bit more aggressive. And he didn't understand what was going on, but he felt as though he was going to be straight. So then they make their way to Pooky. Woo-hoo-hoo. When they get to Pooky, they tell Pooky, they say, look, this is what we see. We want to tell you everything that your brothers told us so you'll know that we're not making this up. And they reminded him of the night that they kicked in the door that they had taken the grandmother out in the hallway. They reminded him that they thought she didn't have dementia. They thought she was faking. They thought she was the ringleader. They thought she was running this thing. And all of that information came from Jarvis. Right? And then they went on to tell him, said, we've talked to the pharmacist that your grandmother gets her medication from. And it's not you that take your brother down there, take your grandmother down there. It's your brother that takes her down there. So everything seems to be pointing at him. But we got one problem. You don't have a job. You're driving a nice car out there. You're driving a nice car. And we can't for the life of us seem to figure out how you're able to do the things that you do without a job. But the DEA agent said, he said, look, we're not going to worry about that. He said, one time and one time only. You tell us everything that's going on, how your brother's doing it, and we're going to cut you loose. We just want to stop these drugs. So he looks at him and he says, can I talk to my lawyer first? They said, sure. You can talk to your lawyer. Give him a call. Tell him come on down. So he calls his lawyer. He tells his lawyer what's going on. His lawyer's on the way. He gets down there. And the lawyer asks him, what kind of deal we got? They slide the papers right in front of him. All we need him to do is testify truthfully. And he's got full immunity. All they got to do is tell us the truth. Tell us what happened. But if he lies, all bets are off. He's going to jail too. So he tells Pooky, whispers in his ear, tell them what they want to know, you're good. If not, we'll fight it. It's your word against your brothers. But they got some evidence. And we'll be rolling the dice. Pooky looks at his lawyer, winks at him. I got it. He opens his mouth and he tells the DEA agents, my brother's operation. I didn't know where he was getting his money from at first, but when I figured it out, I tried to get him to stop. He started using. He went into treatment, came back out, and continued to sell it. Continued to do everything he was doing. And continued to make money. He was taking care of Granny and us. We didn't want anything to do with him. But everything that you see is a result of him. And they said, are you willing to testify to that? And he asked him, how much time is my brother going to get? And he told him, we don't know right now because he's on probation, but don't you worry about that. He'll be able to get out one day. So he looks at him, he said, yes, I'll testify to it. So they slid the papers in front of him, he signed them, put his signature on the contract. It's locked in now. He's a witness for the government. Pooky's a witness for the government. So now, they let him leave. They go pick up Jarvis, question him, arrest him, book him. Now he's sitting down at the jail. He's withdrawing. He's addicted still to the drugs that he was on. Now he's panicking. He's trying to figure out what happened. He don't know why they arrested him. He don't understand what's going on. Nobody's telling him anything. He makes a phone call home. He calls his brother. His brother's talking to him on the phone. The DEA had already told his brother, don't tell him about the agreement. So he gets him on the phone and he's talking to him. Now, the prison and jail, they record all the phone calls. So Jarvis is asking Pooky, what's going on? What's happening? He said, I got arrested. They're charging me with the same thing they charge you with. He said, I don't know. I don't know. He said, I thought you were already charged. I thought we were already going to fight this together. And Jarvis said, well, I think these are some additional charges. Still lying. Thinking Jarvis is stupid. He said, man, can you get the same bondsman to come and make my bond? He said, do you have a bond? He said, not right now. He said, I got to go to bond hearing in the morning. He said, I'll be there. Bond hearing came. Pooky don't show up, but the bondsman does. Right? They give him a bond. The bondsman goes to talk to Jarvis about the money. Jarvis ain't got the money. He said, Pooky gonna pay it. My brother gonna pay it. Just get me out of here. So the bondsman goes and makes a phone call, calls Pooky, asks him, he said, man, you making the bond or not? He said, let him sit for a couple of days, man. I need to figure out some stuff. So the bondsman tell him, he said, I'll be back to get you. He didn't tell him when, though. Jarvis goes back upstairs. They put him back in the tank. He's sitting up there waiting. He called Pooky. He said, bro, what happened to the bondsman? He tells him, he said, let's hit him. He said, we're going to work it out. We're going to get you out. Just hold on or something. He had to go do some other things first, but he's going to get you out. It might take a day or so. And Jarvis is panicking. You know, that addiction is on him. It's all over him. He said, a couple of days. He said, why did it need to take a couple of days? He said, I need to get up out of here now. I want out of here now. He said, you're going to have to wait, bro. Hung up the phone. 1 day turns to 2. 2 turns to 5. 5 turns to 2 weeks. 2 weeks turn to a month. Jarvis is still sitting there, and every day he calls, he's more and more agitated. But the reality of his situation is starting to sink in. His lawyer comes down there to talk to him. Paperwork in hand. He shows it to him. They're downstairs at where the lawyers meet at, right, with the clients. He shows him on the paperwork that his brother is the state's witness, the government's witness. Jarvis leans back in the chair. The life just goes up out of him. And he just starts to laugh. And the lawyer looks at him and said, what are you laughing about? This is serious. He said, he got me before I got him. And the lawyer looks at him and says, what do you mean by that? I said, man, I got to be honest about the whole situation, man. I talked first. I was trying to get out from under this. I was going to toss all of them to the wolves. I didn't want to go to jail, but now I guess I got to go. So he asked the lawyer, how much am I looking at? The lawyer told him, about 15. 15? 15 years. He said, yeah. He said, in the feds, you got to do 85% of that. So he'll do about 12 and some change out in the feds. Now he just sits there in his chair. He gets up, he says, run it. Give me a plea. So he goes back and he talks to the prosecuting attorney, and they offer him a plea deal. Since he was willing to plead, they gave him 12. He took the 12. Pooky didn't have to testify. Nobody had to testify. Every month, Pooky sends him money. Every month, his mom goes to visit him because she's out. And they still take care of Pops that's locked up. But Granny was the plug. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.